What happens when the issue isn't evidence, but whether we're willing to accept what that evidence might imply? My channel is called Facing Facts with Faith. I chose that name very deliberately. I don't believe faith requires avoiding facts, but I do believe it requires us to be careful about what we do with them. Since my first video over a month ago, I've completed another episode, but I haven't released it yet. And I've begun working on a response video to a well-known polygamy skeptic. One of those episodes dives immediately into controversial territory, and the other may need to be split up into multiple parts, simply because of how many refutable claims are made. But before I release any of those, I want to slow down and talk about a concern I've been wrestling with. If I convince you, despite both your distaste and mine for plural marriage, that Joseph Smith believed he had a mandate from God to restore it, that he practiced it secretly, and that he taught it to a small circle of trusted associates, what are you left with? Well, you're left with having to accept that reality, including all of its uncomfortable and messy beginnings. And I'm not sure I can fulfill, at least to everyone's satisfaction, the second pillar of my channel, which is faith. I freely admit that I don't understand why God would command plural marriage and what it ultimately means for the next life. Perhaps my eyes can't see afar off, as the scriptures say. I've heard all the explanations you've heard, that it was a restoration of all things, a test or an Abrahamic test, a way to raise up a righteous seed. Any or all of those could be true. And yet we're still left with the reality that anywhere from 2 to 54 women shared one husband, often without the possibility of a deep, exclusive relationship with one soulmate. We all agree that monogamy is God's standard. Where we may differ is whether plural marriage represents a rare exception. Accepting that possibility means living with the uncomfortable truth that rare exceptions, by definition, could occur again. We already live with the reality that LDS men may be sealed to more than one wife. I feel the weight of the historical evidence supports the church's official position, and I choose to live with the tension that conclusion creates. So here's my first question. I know there's no such thing as truly irrefutable evidence, but suppose evidence emerged that convinced you Joseph Smith dictated the revelation we now have as Section 132, and that he secretly taught and practiced plural marriage. What do you do next? Is that a deal breaker? Does that make Joseph Smith a fallen prophet? Or can you accept that there are things you may not fully understand in mortality? Can you retain your faith while integrating deeply uncomfortable realities into it? That brings me to my second concern. Brigham Young. For some, placing plural marriage squarely on his shoulders may feel like a way to preserve belief in Joseph Smith. Obviously, Brigham Young makes an easy villain. He could be gruff and blunt, and he's associated with difficult doctrines like the priesthood restriction and Adam God teachings and the blood atonement, all of which have been, disavowed. It can feel intuitive to conclude that polygamy must also rest at his feet. But after reading multiple biographies, I've come to love Brigham Young, warts and all. He was no Joseph Smith, but he measured others by their loyalty to Joseph, and he himself was fiercely loyal. Like Emma, he invoked Joseph's name with his dying words. I know many of my skeptical viewers will disagree. So my second set of questions is directed to those who see Joseph as good and Brigham as the problem. Are we led by a prophet today? Does he hold the same priesthood keys Joseph Smith held? If so, how did he receive them? Is our temple worship something inherited from Brigham Young and therefore optional, or from Joseph Smith? And if Section 132 was fabricated or altered by Brigham Young and only made public in 1852, do you also reject Sections 110, 130, and 131, which were published in 1876? These are not questions meant to corner anyone, and I'm not looking for a debate. I'm actually looking for answers to those questions. They're questions meant to help us examine whether evidence is truly the obstacle or whether the obstacle lies in what we're willing to let that evidence ask of us. Winning an argument at the cost of someone's faith, in my opinion, is losing. I'm Jerry Phillips, and this is Facing Facts with Faith.